everybody, welcome in. This video is going to be all about a little brush set that I discovered recently in my Walmart store. Hadn't heard about them anywhere, just saw the display at the end of an aisle and thought this sounds interesting to me. And it's from EcoTools and it's called their 360 Ultimate Blend Set. So it's a trio of brushes. It's around $15, $16 for these three. And really it's kind of perpetuating this concept in my videos that won't die these days. And it says for smooth coverage and seamless blending, best with cream and stick formats. Okay, I've been talking about stick foundations forever, it seems like, and now we've got something that's really well suited to that type of texture. It says this kit is designed with 3 densely packed sculpted brush heads for quick application and a perfectly blended finish. And in this video I am going to take you through a full talk through demo of how I use each one of these for foundation, concealer, and a stick cream blush. But I want to talk a little bit about this design and why it does really make sense to me, because when you're using a stick foundation or maybe like a cream foundation that's coming out of a compact, we're talking about a thicker, kind of stiffer consistency of product, you know? And the thing that really comes at that the best from a brush standpoint is going to be a thick, stiff brush. If you're not interested in using a beauty blender, let's say, this is a way to kind of break down that product or actually maintain the coverage of it, but help get an even blend across the skin. And the first thing I thought when I saw these was, oh, this is kind of like EcoTools' take on those big paddle style brushes, you know? The Artiste brushes, or I know Moda has kind of jumped on this bandwagon of having a big paddle style brush with a handle. It's more like various sizes of this style of brush. And so that's kind of what the density of these brushes made me think of, but it's a totally different experience because like the name implies, it's 360. Every part of this brush is accessible to part of your face. And another subtle but important part about these brushes that makes them work so effectively in that manner is the gentle taper around the outside. It's not just a drop off. And let me assure you, I truly love my Sigma F80. This brush is cut straight across and it works really well for all kinds of liquid foundations, but there is an added versatility when you have that little, and it's almost hard to identify, but there's a little taper and that allows like every edge of this brush to be effective at blending something, right? Even when you want to turn it slightly on its side, there are still the ends of brush hairs there that have been tapered down just a little bit that can help you get to everything. And in my demo, you'll see I can take this big brush and get it everywhere right up to my lower lash line, around the sides of the eye, the nose. And I think that's a really important detail. So just because the brush isn't sitting squarely like boom, right with the full surface area of the brush on your skin, if you tilt it somewhat or move it or adjust it, there are still accessible tips of brush hairs there that can blend something. So I hope that made sense, but I think that's an important detail about these brushes. I'd also like to point out that this is not a super important thing, but I love this soft, kind of barely there blush pink color, and they appear to be kind of speckled, the handles. They just feel like they are heavy duty. There's a nice weight, obviously a more weighted feel toward the end of the brush than the handle, but I think that really does aid you in the blending. So as you can see here, we've got our largest, which is designed for foundation, our middle one, they identify as being good for a cream blush, and then our smallest here, I like this for concealer. They also mention using this for a cream highlighter, and I could see people using the medium one too for foundation if you prefer just a little bit smaller size. But I've really been impressed with these brushes. I think the quality is really nice. I remember having a little bit of shedding the first time I used them, but it's been very minor. I've continued using them and haven't noticed anything further. All right, everyone, I'm going to take you through a little tutorial, not voicing it over, just so I feel like sometimes I am less likely to leave things out if I'm just really describing everything as I'm doing it. So I'm going to be using the Ultimate Buff brush, which is the big one for my foundation, the Ultimate Pop brush for a stick blush, or actually before the blush, I'm going to use the Ultimate Cover brush for concealer. So today I grabbed for my L'Oreal Infallible Longwear Shaping Stick. This has SPF 27 and I wear it in the shade Shell Beige. And I'm just going to spot this all over my skin like I normally would. If you watched my stick foundation review video, you saw this demoed in there as well, because this is among my top 5. I think this is a really fantastic stick that gives your skin sort of a velvety semi-matte look. And then here's our brush. Just to give you a little size perspective with a brush I know a lot of people are familiar with. Where can I hold these? This is a Sigma F80 right here. Side by side with the EcoTools, they almost seem like they have a similar surface area just going around the top of the bristles. But the difference would be that the F80 has a lot of give to it. I mean, it's a pretty dense dense brush, but when you move it around, you can see those bristles kind of dancing around my hand there. Meanwhile, this one, everything stays really stiff, and it's as stiff here in the center of the brush as it is kind of out to the sides. You just don't see a ton of movement. Obviously, I wasn't concerned about this foundation setting on my skin, but it blends out everything really, really fast. You see how much surface area that covers? And I think the really dense brush paired with a thicker creamy foundation, it really is a good match for that type of product. So as you can see here, I can get it around my eyes, like all the way in there actually. I'm not sure if that angle helped you at all, but like I can take the side of this brush and get it right up in there. So I think that's kind of a benefit to not having this be a real handle style brush. You really can use it all the way around, and even this large size can fit into every area. You can kind of buff in circular motions with it, or you can use it just kind of in sweeping motions, whatever you prefer. I think sort of a dabbing motion around the eyes is actually probably the best way to maintain coverage there. I can fit it around the sides of the nose. I think the first time I used this, I didn't even expect to be able to do that. Like there's a little mind game being played with me with this brush. I thought, well, it's a big brush, you're not going to be able to do that, but you really can. But having this smaller brush for a concealer type product does make it a little easier even, and you can see a little bit better what you're doing because look, you know, you really get that foundation brush in there and you almost knock out some of your visibility just because the brush is so big. So the concealer I specifically want to show with this is my Tarte Maracuja Creaseless Concealer. Anytime I've put this on, you've seen me put it on with this brush, and I kind of thought it was part of the key to this really thick, rich concealer was this super dense brush, and it does apply the product really well, sweeps it across the skin so nicely. But guess what? If you don't want to make that additional purchase, this brush can do it too. It's just as dense and soft. It's just a little different shape, and you can use it in the exact same like motion across the skin and get the same effect. So let's do this. I'm going to take my concealer and kind of swipe it down there and swipe it out that way as well. Swipe and a swipe, and maybe just a little way out here. Then I'm going to take this brush and I'm just going to work the brush across the skin in the same kind of sweeping manner that I might have used the other one, the other brush that was designed for this product. And look, it's covering just the same. It feels really similar, maybe just a little smaller feel across the skin, but still like not significantly different. And then I can really see what I'm doing now around the inner part of the eye. I had maybe a little shedding on my first time using these, but that seems to have worked itself out. Again, hitting that inner corner, pulling downward, outward. I'm not sure what got into me there. I definitely applied a little more concealer than I usually do when I use that stuff. And if you really want to attack that process quickly, I mean, you can always bring in the bigger brush if you want to, but I do love the precision of the smaller one. Okay, moving on to another step, I used my Kevin Aquan, my little contour book here. I really find myself going to the deep shade a lot. It's got a little more warmth to it than these other top two. I'll sometimes mix it with the medium and take it lightly around the hairline and the hollows of the cheeks. And so now I feel like I'm ready for my blush, and a really great stick blush is this one from Onami, and it's the Boosting Lip and Cheek Stick. It's a hydrating balm, they say, collagen enhancing actives, and a hint of color. And I have 3 shades in this. I got a little set, came with a small dense stiff brush, but if you don't want to put that extra money into purchasing a brush, this middle-sized brush in the set works really well. We've been reading a lot of Goldilocks and the Three Bears, so this is the mama brush. So here's my stick, and it might look a little intimidating when you think, am I really going to swipe that on my cheeks right now? But yes, we are. It only takes a little bit. I'm going to go right here on the apple of my cheeks with a little swipe. I may even build it up more than that, we'll see. And I'm just gonna work that in kind of a circular motion, just kind of pulling the product. Think of pulling it in the direction you want it to blend. And the stick really isn't like crazy stiff and dry, but I feel like this kind of brush could really help a drier consistency stick. And look at that, this is so beautiful. This is that natural, rosy, kind of in from the cold flush. Not that many of us can relate to that idea right now, but you know what I mean. And I just think about really spreading it in the direction I want it to go, and then maybe a little bit of buff just to make sure it's all blended in. And I think I'm going to even add a touch more And I don't feel like I'm undoing all of my nice coverage that I had going on prior to this product, but some of that is going to depend on the quality of, you know, your cream blush stick. If you're using something that's really, extra dry, you might struggle with that more because it still needs to get blended, and it's not really the brush's fault if you end up, you know, brushing away some of your foundation's coverage. But if you have a nice kind of easy to work with stick like this, you're not gonna have any problems. And look at that radiance. And then it's a lip and cheek, so I can just kind of dab this right here and have total, you know, coordination with the look. There's a really pretty berry shade and kind of a neutrally nude in this collection too. And my sister was the one who put me onto this. I reviewed them in a somewhat recent video on new lip products. New lip products to me anyway. Now another brush that I've talked about for a long time with cream and stick blushes would be my e.l.f. small stipple brush. These two guys are kinds of opposites in density. This one's all like kind of thinned out and light, and this one's thicker. And if you do find yourself using a literal stick blush, something that is really coming from that thicker consistency, your blending really does go faster, I think, with this type of brush. And you don't actually have to apply that much pressure. You don't have to really get in there and be like, okay, it's blending now. Like, you can still be light with this brush, but this small stipple you might even prefer for some consistencies that aren't so stiff, or maybe you think it's just fine for a stick. In a lot of cases I think it is, but I just wanted to give mention to that because I have talked about my dear small stipple brush so much. Okay, so here's my finished look. I popped on just a little bit of highlight that came from that Kevin Aquan book on top of my cheeks, but I'm super pleased with the way each of these brushes did their jobs. And I wanted to also point out that I have tried the foundation brush with just a standard liquid foundation, a very typical liquid foundation texture. My Maybelline Superstay blends it out beautifully, very, very quickly too, because, you know, this is a huge brush, so it's covering a lot of space on your face as it passes over the different sections, right? So I get a very even blend, a very quick blend. So I don't think you need to feel like, okay, if I buy this brush, I'm only going to be able to use it with my sticks. I think it is really ideal because of the stiffness of the bristles, and it really works well with a foundation that needs that extra help kind of pulling across the skin. But a beautifully dense, soft brush like this, it's not going to be a problem for any liquid you pair it with either. It just might be a little larger than you're used to, but I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised at the fact that it has that taper and how nicely it can actually get around the small crevices, even being a big brush. Now, I'm not sure if this may change, but in the display, I only saw these as a set. I didn't see them available individually. That's not to say that that might not exist at some point, but it was just the set that I was seeing. But yeah, it is really hard to have a whole lot to pick apart with these. I think the thought of a brush being specifically marketed to cream and stick products, it is a very targeted goal, you know, but I think it's helpful. You don't want to try to blend out a stick foundation with bristles that are just too loose and mobile across your face and not really helping that product move, because if you're really trying to pull that off, you'll either end up with an unblended look or you'll have spent way, way longer than necessary trying to get that product meshed in with your skin, and this does it very fast. So that's my take on these. Let me know if you've tried them, what you think of them. Have you discovered any other purposes for them that you really like? Let me know, and I will talk to you guys soon. Bye.